Hi, this is Chris Marano, sitting in the Hungry Ghost Bread Garden again on a couple of days into summer. What's today's date? I believe it's the 23rd of June, and it's a gorgeous, although very dry, late June day. So I'm going to show you around at some of the things that are suffering as well as the things that are thriving because of this dryness. If you're only joining now for the first time, I am bringing these gardens to you since we can't gather here and go on an herb walk. We're bringing the herb walk to you, and I'm concentrating on speaking about the herbal medicinal benefits of the plants that seem to be most vibrant right now, so that I can speak about them when they're at peak beauty. Last time I spoke about 5 of them or so: California poppy, this one right here, and a few others down the other side of the garden. So this is these gardens were built by Local Harmony and a bunch of volunteers. The garden was designed by Owen Wormser, co-director of Local Harmony, and all of the plants in this garden are either the official medicines or first cousin beautiful variants of those official medicines, and we transform this area into a thriving ecosystem for pollinator attractors and birds that you can hear in the background. You're also going to hear a bunch of traffic going by. This is guerrilla style, so this is totally live and raw, nothing up our sleeves, nothing pre-planned here. We'll talk about these different plants in different ways. So for this first plant I would like to talk about, first, this is another plant I talked about last week. This is the flower stalk of these giant globe alliums or onion family. But I'm just going to carry this in my hand while I talk about other plants today. The plant I would like to talk about first today is yarrow. And this is not the official yarrow. The official yarrow, I think many of you are familiar with it. It grows wild all over the place around here in vacant lots and the sides of roads and open fields. The official yarrow, Achillea millefolium, is white. The flower is white and sometimes leans into another color, oftentimes into a very light pink or a very light yellow. So they capitalized on this. This is Achillea millefolium var something else, where they really accentuated the red color to make it come out really powerful. So this plant, I will show you a leaf. I'll come a little closer with a leaf and the flower. So sacrifice the small flower right here with another leaf. And so let me show you the scientific name. Like I said, for yarrow is Achillea millefolium. So millefolium, folium means leaf, mill means thousands. If you look, am I good there? If you look at the leaf, it is so finely divided into many tiny leaflet patterns, very reminiscent of a fern. When this first comes out in the spring, the flowers, of course, aren't coming out with it. They're very easy to identify. Yarrow is also very easy to identify by the smell. Its smell is extremely fragrant, aromatic, many essential oils in the plant. I really like the smell a lot. The flowers, this is an umbel. It's in the umbel family, or the Apiaceae family. It used to be the Umbelliferae family, but they always changing things around. And it's basically an umbrella pattern of many small, multiple flowers. In here, of course, they're a beautiful, deep kind of burgundy red. And as I said, usually they're even a little bit tighter clumped and white, and you probably pass it all the time. And also Sometimes, like I said, pale yellow. There might be others in this garden that are of the yellow variety. Anyway, the medicine is the leaf and the flower. The stem is kind of inert. It does have some of the medicine, but it's the same as what's in the leaf and the flower. And so it's more succulent. There's more going on in those two parts. So basically, when it's in high flower, grabbing the leaf in the upper part of the plant, especially when it's still in a soft stage, that is key. Perfect time, high medicine. But if you need it in a pinch, the medicine is in the leaf, and you can use the leaf for first aid medicine. This is one of the most important first aid medicines that I know of. I sometimes call it barefoot doctor medicine. That seems like a misnomer. It's like, what do you do when something goes wrong out in the field and you need something to handle a wound or a sprain or whatever, a bee sting, and you look around and you have what's around you? That's on the spot first aid medicine. And yarrow is a superior vulnerary. Vulnerary means wound healer, and as a wound healer, its first and foremost, most famous virtue is it's aseptic, or an anti-hemorrhagic. It stops bleeding, a hemostat, and it's remarkable how well it works. So if you cut yourself, even a pretty major wound, we're not talking arterial. In that case, we're looking for 911 and a tourniquet. But if we're talking about minor wounds up to semi-serious wounds, you can actually watch the blood start to coagulate right before your eyes. You can chew it really fast, make a poultice, put it on top of the wound. It's remarkable. I've seen it slow blood down, and from a pour to a kind of a syrup to a viscous bubble that looked like resin on the outside of a pine tree, and then it just stopped and it started forming a clot right there on the spot within seconds. And this works raw, leaf or flower. It works as a tea. It also works as a tincture. You can pour the tincture right on. It still does the same thing. So its scientific name, Achillea, as in Achilles. And this other common names are like woundwort and knight's foil, as in a knight in armor. This is warrior medicine. This is medicine to stop the blood and the flow of wounds. On top of that, it is also antiseptic, so it can prevent infection at the same time it's doing what it's doing. And it starts to seal the lips of the edges of the wound to start to make it actually meet better. Not sealing them up so that they don't meet, but sealing them up so that they're starting to staunch the extra flow of blood. And as it meets, then it just goes into a vulnerary, actual tissue regenerating mode. So very useful alongside other tissue regenerating vulneraries like comfrey or plantain or calendula. Amazing. So Achilles, why Achilles? You all know the story. He's this demigod, right? He was half deity, and his mother tried to make him invulnerable, so dipped him in the river Styx, I believe, in order to give him that power. But where she was holding him by the ankle, that was the one spot where he was vulnerable. And then in the Trojan War, they one of the goddesses slipped the news to Paris, and Paris shoots him in the ankle and is able to subdue him, and he can be killed. And so that's the sad story of Achilles at the very end. But what we don't know about Achilles so much is that he was an amazing medic. Why? Because he never got wounded, and he was the best warrior of the bunch. So at the end of the day, when everybody's in the tents groaning from wounds, he was free of it. So he became this master medic in helping people out, because he was one of the only mobile ones left at the end of the day. And yarrow was a very important medicine for him when it comes down to this day. Yarrow is not native to North America. It's a Mediterranean plant. Doesn't show up, I believe, in Chinese materia medica either. It's more in European, North African, Middle Eastern medicine. And then, of course, once it came here, the Native Americans did not ignore the plant. If it works, it works. So that's externally. You can also apply it to bee stings. It actually helps to dispel swelling, and it has an analgesic property, the ability to just take away pain, like a bit of an aspirin effect. Internally, it's even more remarkable. What I have a phrase to describe yarrow. I say that it holds the middle because it has this very unique dual acting effect on blood, on qi, and on mucous membrane tissue. And by dual action, I mean, for instance, in regard to blood. First, it's a superior, maybe the very best blood stopper medicine, externally and internally. You can take it internally for passive hemorrhage through the reproductive system, urinary, lung, nosebleeds, wherever that you might be bleeding. It's also useful for first aid internally, like in bleeding from a colitis flare-up, an ulcerative colitis or Crohn's flare-up. Useful for arresting bleeding coming from an ulcer, internal or external. Its blood-stopping properties are superior externally and internally. However, at the same time, it helps to break up blood congestion. If blood is stagnant, seemingly more viscous or prone to coagulation, yarrow has this kind of quickening, enlivening effect on blood. Through its enlivening effect on qi. Qi and blood are totally intertwined with each other, and yarrow just kind of rides the middle right between them and allows for better flow of blood through congested areas, either through joints, female reproductive blood clotting, uterine fibroids, especially if there's bleeding, venous, varicose veins, venous congestion like phlebitis. Very useful in formulas for any of that. Yarrow is superior. And that would be enough, except that it's also doing it on the level of the mucous membranes. And so it's this dual action of both being wound healing to wounded flesh and tissue. Like mucous membranes are like internal flesh, and flesh is like external mucous membranes. Yarrow has this effect of stopping things that should not be going, like bleeding, but it also is astringent. It tones tissue that has become weak and flaccid and battered from getting battered from illness after illness, UTI after UTI, lung infection after lung infection. But it also helps to tone flaccid tissue from weakness. So in Chinese medicine, they speak of medicines that strengthen upright qi, or the tone that keeps all the membranes strong in the body, including vessels and bladders. You can use yarrow as an upright qi toner to tone a weakened or a prolapsed bladder, rectum, intestinal tissue. It becomes superior for intestinal tissue. Any formula to help deal with chronic irritable bowel syndrome that's starting to adversely affect the actual tissue of the intestines. So really valuable. It goes into every formula I make for intestinal issues of irritable bowel and Crohn's disease and ulcerative colitis. Superior there. Also very helpful with boggy mucous membrane tissues in the lungs. So if you are feeling like your lungs are weak, or you've had successive bronchitis illnesses, or one cold after another with lots of coughing, and it feels like your lungs are tired and weak and played out, yarrow is really good at innervating and toning that tissue. And the same applies for the bladder and the urinary system. It helps to tone the bladder so it can more efficiently expel urine. What else about yarrow? As a flower essence, yarrow is considered one of the best formula medicines. And when I say formula, they'll use the flower essence of white yarrow, yellow yarrow, and pink yarrow in order to create this. If you're not familiar with flower essences, this is this concept that plants have an effect through their own personality on a positive or transformative effect on certain deeper psychic, spiritual, emotional levels of a human being. And that Edward Bach, the person who invented this idea of flower remedies, I think, at least he's the one who's recognized for it, he said that the quintessential expression of a plant's medicinal personality is expressed in the flower. So picking the flower at peak time, putting it in spring water in a crystal bowl, using your hands as little as possible to touch the flowers, and then drawing the water off once the flowers seem to lose their freshness while sitting in the water, adding some brandy as a preservative, and that becomes a mother. And the flower essence has supposedly homeopathic to holographic properties, that one drop in your tongue is equivalent to one drop in a gallon, is equivalent to one drop in a pool, a swimming pool. So these are some of the concepts that flower essences speak to us. And yarrow was used by the FES company, Flower Essence, I forget what the S is for, Society probably. They used the three of them together as something called yarrow special formula to deal with chronic kind of low-key crisis. Many of you probably heard of Rescue Remedy. Rescue Remedy is a combination of 5 flower remedies that deals with immediate crisis, like you got into a car accident or something serious went down really fast in your face, no time to prepare. That's Rescue Remedy. But yarrow is more for deflecting and being able to have a bubble in toxic environments. You know, the kind of chronic trauma where it might not be in your face and super, super hardcore, but you have to show up to work every day in a toxic environment or a toxic workmate or something, and you just wish it could just go right around you and just keep on going. And yarrow really helps with that. It's considered warrior medicine for the wounded physically, and also constitutionally for the person who just wants to just jump right into chaos things and help out. You know, they don't have to be warriors on a field of battle for killing. It could be warriors on a field of battle for healing. But still, the healers have to take care of themselves. And these are for the people that jump in and spend all of their energy and give it all away. So yarrow has that property as well. It's also famous for its fever management properties. Fever management means intelligently utilizing an incredible defense system that our body uses in defense of microbial infections. People have lost the art of that. Fevers are pretty benign up until 104 for most people, and we need to know how to manage them when they are at the lower numbers, like between 99 and 102. 2 ways to manage fevers is to help to expel water, and the water opens up the vents and takes the heat with it, either through sweating, diaphoretic, or through urinating, diuretic. Many herbs that are diaphoretic, when ingested hot, like a hot tea or a tincture squirted in hot water, they generate heat and create diaphoresis. You expel the heat and the sweat through your skin pores. If you take it cold tincture or a cold tea, then it works as a diuretic, but you're still eliminating a lot of heat and draining the heat downward through the diuretic property. Yarrow is one of those herbs. So knowing how to use it to encourage fever management. It has the ability to bring down a fever if high. Excuse me? It brings down a fever if high because you can administer it cold, or you can use it to break a fever by popping it up a little higher, and then you would administer it hot. So yarrow, wonderful, wonderful medicine. It's every herbalist, when I was learning about herbalism back in the 80s and 90s and taking it to heart, every herbalist I studied with would say yarrow is like, I could write a book about the things that yarrow can do for human health. But then I would look around and nobody was using it. And I was wondering why. Maybe it's because, aside from its blood-stopping properties, it's not number one in anything. It's like it holds the middle. It kind of is invisibly keeping you right down the center of the channel. That's what I see yarrow's special energy as. And maybe that's why it keeps people from being affected by toxicity around you, because you can just stay in your zone. And I don't mean in a disconnected way. You're just not messing with it. And it does that for our tissue, and it does that for mucous membranes, and it does that for the flow of blood. It does that for the female reproductive system. It does it for toning male reproductive system in the seminal vesicles and the prostate. It does it for hemorrhoids. It does it for varicosities. It does it for the lungs. It does it for digestion in the intestines and the urinary system, working through all of those systems. So, can't speak more highly than I have about yarrow, but I could, and I also make it into an oil and a salve to put with other vulneraries to help with healing of wounds. So, list goes on and on. And yeah, that's all I want to say about yarrow. That's plenty. And I'll meet you up at another plant in a couple of minutes. See ya. Hey again, just Marano here. Now sitting in a mess of California poppy, which I talked about last time. I really want to talk about what's to my left. This is butterfly weed or pleurisy root, but check this out. Here we are in a drought, right? I mean, it's a bona fide drought at this point. So you got to figure there must be some plants that love droughty weather, and the first one that might come to mind is a cactus. Although you wouldn't think of that in Northampton, cacti are, as a rule, if they're not poisonous, they are medicinal as first aid medicine. But check this prickly pear cactus out. Flowers are off the charts. I've never seen anything so beautiful. There's a flaming, fiery yellow sun. The bees love it. There's a honeybee in there right now. It's just magnificent. And there's going to be so many more popping up. This pad alone, if you live in the Northampton area, I would strongly suggest taking a walk down here. I don't know how long the flowers last, and by the time you hear this, it's going to be, I think, July 31st, so you might not actually see these in flowers, but pretty amazing. Beautiful flowers. The bees. I just can't get over them. I'm really excited about them. So, just to talk briefly about this medicine, and to talk about a particular way of thinking about plants, there's a Native American thinking. I should be more specific. I was taught in the Cherokee tradition and also in the Ojibwe tradition that plant medicines will often either mimic or antidote the environment they live in. So what does this mean? Think of a classic, stereotypical environment, like the desert or a swamp. Something, just talk about those two extremes. So the energetics of the desert is dry and hot, or with very, very extreme temperature changes. But for the most part, dry and irritated conditions can arise in hot desert-like conditions. energetic of hot and dry, and also antidote that energetic, which would mean that they were cool and moist. And if you have a hot and dry condition, let's say in your mucous membranes or on your skin, like a sunburn, then one of the first things you think of reaching for is aloe, which is a succulent. It's in the succulent category of plants. That mucilaginous, cool, healing pulp in the middle, it's the same stuff that's in here. It might be a little bit better in aloe, but that's the medicine that you would go for if you needed to help with any kind of hot and dry irritated condition of the skin, which you would apply like an emollient, or taking internally like pulp in a blender and mixed with a smoothie or a juice for hot and dry inflamed conditions of the respiratory passages, or even more important, the digestive passages. I know that they also use prickly pear cactus traditionally by indigenous cultures for helping to balance blood sugar. Also, it's very useful for atrophic conditions where you just have dried out mucous membranes and you need to just enliven. So very good for dry, hot, irritated, or dry, weakened. And again, so beautiful. That's not the plant I wanted to speak about. So now I'm going to shift my weight around and talk about this plant here, known as butterfly weed. In the herbal circles, it's known as pleurisy root just as much. It's orange milkwort. It's in the milkweed family. This is a butterfly attractor. Monarchs will land on this, as they will also land on milkweed. This is striking in its like off the charts orangey orange flower. The medicine, however, is the root. The root is a white to palish yellow color. Best to pick this root in the fall. Going back to the last one, best to pick yarrow when it is in full flower and the leaves are vibrant. So I think I said that. So butterfly weed, the root medicine, is right. What it does most famously is right in the name of its common name. Its scientific name, by the way, is Asclepias tuberosa. Again, another genus name coming from like a god of medicine, Asclepius. So here we have like a kind of Greek demigod kind of cohort between yarrow and pleurisy root. You'll actually see there's a little bit of similarity between them. Asclepias tuberosa is profound lung medicine, as in pleurisy root. It's expectorant, it's decongestant, it's sedating, it's antispasmodic. It has fever management properties. It is one of the best all by itself herbs, or in combination even better, for relieving lung conditions that have spasmodic coughing and pain as part of it. So pleurisy is a very painful lung respiratory condition where the pleural sac and the next membrane that it's between needs to have a very lubricated, smooth kind of Teflon quality between them. But they can get dried out and inflamed, and when they scratch over each other while you're breathing, it hurts really bad. That's pleurisy. It's a dried out condition. So pleurisy root really works well when there's mucous membrane conditions. There's pain involved, but there is a trapped quality to the mucus or the secretions, and they need help to expel from the mucous membranes in a good way in order to provide lubrication. Whether the lubrication's between the pleural sac, whether it's in your lungs, really great for the throat. It even works for joint capsules. So dried out joint capsules that get really painful and need to get lubricated. Really good for intestinal lubrication. peristalsis, also great for the stomach, for helping to release trapped heat and take away the pain of spasm. So when you think of pleurisy root, think first and foremost of relieving pain, antispasmodic, and then helping with intelligent return of secretion to the mucous membranes, no matter where you are, with an affinity for the lungs, first and foremost. But what it does for the lungs, it can also do for the bladder. And what it does for the bladder, it can also do for the stomach and the intestines. So it's phenomenal medicine that translates through all the mucous membrane tissues with, as I said, a strong affinity for the lungs. Whether you are in an acute phase of pneumonia or bronchitis, or you are in the convalescent stage of pneumonia and bronchitis and you need to help to repair, oftentimes in the convalescent stage you have an aftermath of a dry, nagging, spasmodic cough that can get so bad it can crack a rib. This is when you want pleurisy root to help reinstate return of good moisture and relieving pain and taking away the spastic cough. On top of that, it is a very serviceable fever management herb, just like yarrow is, but in a different way. This is really good when you're feeling like you have the heat trapped in you, but you can't open up your pores, like you're clammy. And even when you do sweat, the sweat's really thin. It doesn't feel like it's got anything in it. Like the pores aren't wide enough to secrete the toxins and the more oily stuff, and all that it's squeegeeing out is this really thin liquid. Pleurisy root has the ability to really help to open up the pores and release the toxicity and the congestion. In the same way it can do that for the bladder to release congestion there. It's doing this all throughout the mucous membranes and the skin to help get rid of toxins and to help you to release through water venting. Awesome medicine. Yarrow also does that, in case I forgot to mention that. Yarrow is excellent at helping to release the sweat without causing prostration, meaning a sweat that doesn't make you wiped out. And that's what they say about yarrow, one of the most serviceable diaphoretics for helping you to get rid of stuff through sweat without getting wasted by it. And what they say about pleurisy root in regard to sweating is that it is the most serviceable diaphoretic to help you return to what you would consider normal sweat for a normal sweater, not a person who's normally doesn't sweat at all, but for a person who sweats appropriately at at the right times, pleurisy root helps to return it to that normal kind of sweat. So I also use it respiratorily in asthmatic formulas, especially if it's of a dry variety, and I use it for enfeeblement of the respiratory system. It helps in tonic formulas to help strengthen the lungs at the same time. So really superior lung medicine, but don't forget about all of its other remedies throughout the mucous membranes through its ability to reduce pain, be an antispasmodic, and help mucous membranes and skin to secrete their secretions more intelligently back at a normal. Similar to the intestines, it helps to return peristalsis to normal. It helps to return stomach acid secretions to normal. Very good medicine. Underused, beautiful. Pollinator attractor, butterfly attractor, prefers sandier soil. Kind of likes to grow where yarrow likes to grow. So that's what I had to say about pleurisy root, aka butterfly weed. I will sign off there and meet you somewhere else. Hi, this is Chris Marano. Here we are at the Hungry Ghost Bread Gardens, Clearpath Herbals Sister Gardens. I've spoken before about how all these plants in this garden are medicinals. I'm redoing this herb right here, epimedium, because last time I did it, the traffic was so unbearably loud, nobody could hear the audio. So I bought a mic, and I'm going to be holding it closer, and hopefully it'll drown out the traffic that's going by incessantly. I thought coming in a Sunday morning would make things better, and with the Hungry Ghost Bread bakery closed for cleaning and some renovations, that it would be quieter, but it's not at all. Sirens. The only thing that's not happening today is the construction. So here we are doing epimedium again. This is the plant right here. I would love to have shown you this in full flower, but that was back in the late spring or even mid-spring. This is a Chinese plant, medicinal. It's grown as a ground cover all over the place. You probably, some of you may even know about it. There are some really great cultivar growers of this plant living out in eastern Massachusetts. It's very prized as a horticultural ground cover because it's resistant to drought, it's resistant to pests, it doesn't get eaten easily, it doesn't spread easily, it has beautiful flowers, and then the leaves wind up becoming very beautiful in the fall when they start turning color. And so that alone makes it a prized plant in the United States. However, in China, it is super valuable as medicine. Epimedium grandiflorus is the scientific name. Some of its common names you may have heard of before. Horny goatweed. That's what it's famous for, as you'll see. It's also known as lustful sheepherder plant or rowdy lamb herb. So I think you're getting an idea of what this plant medicine is famous for. The medicine is the leaf, so you don't have to take its life to get it. You don't have to take it from the root. And it's a superstar. By the time I'm done talking about this, you're going to say, no, I can't believe it's doing that many things. But it's true. So first and foremost, Chinese would say that it is very nourishing and tonifying to the Chinese kidneys. Chinese kidneys encompass much more than just what the West thinks of the kidneys in the urinary system. It also encapsulates your deep core energy and vitality, what we might call our core reservoir. It has, the Chinese would say that it is the most responsible for the entirety of the endocrine system, especially the hypothalamus, pituitary, and adrenals. So any plant that helps, or mushroom, that helps with nourishing that area, with filling that tank, is very, very useful. If you've heard of the word adaptogens, adaptogens are famous for this. Epimedium is not considered a true adaptogen, but I consider it adaptogenic. It's in the ballpark. There are two aspects to the Chinese idea of kidneys, the kidney yin and the kidney yang. The kidney yin is like this reservoir of deep elixir holding reservoir of vital strength. The kidney yang is kind of like the pilot light that's sitting on top of that reservoir, ever ready to give you the energy you need to send it wherever you need. And you want both to be operating, the kidney yin reservoir and that kidney yin flame, that pilot light. That's why the kidneys are called the foundation of both our water, that kidney yin, and our fire, that pilot light. So epimedium helps both, particularly the kidney yang, or the pilot light, which has a big say over libido. So for both sexes, male, female, it is very, very useful for filling up that tank and giving you more strength to feel like you can do anything, including be horny, like horny goatweed, or get up and go and do what you want to do, have that vigor. For male reproductive system, it goes on. It has a specific use, a specific effect that keeps the sinuses of the penis shaft from deflating. So the sinuses stay filled with blood, and to have a longer duration for an erection. So horny goatweed and epimedium is considered like an herbal Viagra. I wouldn't consider it as strong as Viagra by itself, but used in formulas. There's like pine pollen from the Scots pine in this country. Mixing them together would be invaluable. It's often mixed with Chinese adaptogens, stimulating and non-stimulating adaptogens like rhodiola, ashwagandha, which is not a Chinese herb, it's an Indian herb. I use it with eleuthero, with ginseng. You want to be careful with people who are tending towards overstimulation. You need to also put in herbs that are more nourishing and fill into the tank so the epimedium doesn't use it up and make the tank drop. So, very useful in libido tonics and ED, erectile dysfunction protocols for men. For female reproductive, it's very, very marked estrogen modulating effect. Makes it very useful in menopausal and postmenopausal formulas. There's a lot of issues that postmenopausal women complain about, that they have lost the elasticity and the luster in their skin and their hair. Estrogen keeps you more pliant, moist, juicy, healthy feeling, and once that starts to deplete, the skin feels drier, complaints about vaginal dryness, hair brittleness, losing vigor, and epimedium is one of the herbs in a very popular herbal hormonal replacement formula for women in China who don't want to use pharmaceuticals. There's oftentimes an issue with people saying, yeah, but too much estrogen could lead to women having a higher rate of breast cancer for estrogen receptor sensitive cancers, and so you have to be careful there. Well, epimedium happens to be a modulator of estrogen, not just an increase agent. So it's being studied right now to see if it can actually be very useful in protocols for the treatment of estrogen-sensitive breast cancers. So they're alone, awesome. But its kidney, yin, yang, strengthening properties also extends to the elderly. It's considered an anti-aging herb. It's used very, very often in elderly formulas along with stimulating adaptogens like ginseng to help to strengthen vigor and life force. And you'll see how this extends to organ systems where you could say, oh yeah, that's anti-aging as well. So let's do that. For the nervous system, the epimedium, the medicine in epimedium is incredibly neuroregenerative. Maybe Sunday morning, not the best time. I'm not sure if there's ever a good time to do this without noise. So back to the brain. Neuroprotective, neuroregenerative, increases memory capacity, long-term and short-term, increases cognitive acuity, focus into the night, later on in the day when you feel like your energy and your mind is starting to get tired. Epimedium helps you go that extra mile without burning you out. Also, very useful in antidepressant and anti-anxiety formulas, especially depression. People using epimedium for 3 to 4 weeks straight show marked improvement in their mood on a level with any of the mood-elevating pharmaceutical medications. And you know how many side effects they can have. So that's there, and that also becomes very useful in anti-aging formulas because the brain and the mind is the place that people are very concerned about and don't want it to slip. Continuing on, into the skeletal system, epimedium has constituents in it that prevent bone loss and bone density loss. So very useful in osteopenia and osteoporosis protocols. Again, another issue that plagues the elderly, especially postmenopausal women. So another use for postmenopausal women, not only for estrogen strengthening, but also for bone strengthening, if it's also because of weak bones in general, either sex, doesn't matter, trying to recover from surgery, from breaks and fractures. So very useful there. Continuing on into the lungs, strengthening for the lungs, deep medicine for asthmatics, especially asthmatics who are feeling weak and deficient. So used very often in Chinese lung strengthening protocols. Where else? Lymphimmune system, powerful progenitor of white blood cells from the marrow, also helping to proliferate white blood cells through the bloodstream, very useful for low white blood cell count, strengthens the immune system. Also very useful in cancer prevention. I mentioned breast cancer, also lung cancer, and it has antiviral effects even towards tuberculosis. So, lymphimmune system, male reproductive, female reproductive, Chinese kidneys, and the endocrine system, aging, lungs, musculoskeletal system. That's so much, it becomes superstar status as far as I'm concerned. So there's more I could say about this in detail. It's one of my favorite herbs to talk about in my Materia Medica classes, but that's all I'll say about that for now. And I'm going to take a closer look at the leaf, and then I'll say goodbye, and hopefully this will be a good replacement for the epimedium segment that I did a couple of weeks ago that got totally drowned out. All right, take care, everybody.